Sandoval, Big Bear with Be Smart podcast featuring the Beehooligans. We have Antnee G as a Beehooligan here today. What's up, Antnee? You hanging out today with me?
Yep. On the mend and doing fine.
Oh, man, feeling good.
Yeah.
All right. We have another guest today. He's not quite up to Beehooligan level, at least according to him. He don't feel quite that level, but Beehooligans can be anybody who hang with us. So I want to introduce Mike Dyer. What's going on, Mike?
How are you, Tony?
All right. Mike, we're going to make a Beehooligan out of you yet, bud.
He's already a hooligan.
Well, yeah, but
I'm just saying.
we got to make him one of us.
A work in progress.
There you go. That's right.
One of us.
That's right. We want to do kind of I was running a little late on doing the last podcast, so we're kind of going to sneak this one in before we do the next one. But this is an interesting one. I kind of consider it a special podcast episode because we're going to talk a little bit. Mike, you had a situation, and I think at this time of year, when you have a lot of people who are, oh, and don't forget we have Mike's dog in the background. He wants to be on the podcast too. If y'all are familiar with when we have Shawi on, you know, and JP and his dogs. So we've always got some critter somewhere in the background. It's all good. They're one of us. But anyways, this time of year in the spring, people are getting nucs, they're getting packages, and they're getting ready to install them. And lots of different things can happen when you're installing packages. And sometimes things, you know, you take a class and they prepare you for the basics. You know, okay, you get the bees, you put them in the hive, you do this, and it's pretty much, you know, what we've all kind of come to expect out of that kind of a class. But there's sometimes problems. Things happen that the classes don't prepare you for. And you, unfortunately, ran into a little bit of a problem with a situation that was way out of the ordinary when it comes to, it's out of the ordinary in terms of being talked about, but it actually probably is a little more common than people think it is. It's just it doesn't get talked about a lot. For example, with your packages, you got 2 packages and of 3 pounds of bees in each package. Went to pick them up, brought them home. It was late. It was getting a little cool that evening, so you tucked them in your garage or indoors. Yeah,
it's heated,
nice and warm.
Right.
Keep them happy. Sprayed them a little bit. And you said, all right.
Actually, I didn't spray them.
You didn't spray them, that's right.
Just put them out.
You were ready to go. They had their the cans were actually still a little full. So get them out the next morning. We come out and we're going to put them in. And the bees in one package were completely fallen to the bottom of the cage. I mean, it looked like they were all dead. And the second one was about halfway fallen down. And there was still about half of that 3-pound cluster still at the top, but about half of them all fall down. We looked a little bit closer, and it was all glazed over. What it looked like was that it looked like sugar syrup from the can might have leaked down and drowned the bees. Is from first look. So we got prepared to try to rescue some bees from the package install right then and there. I got to ask you though, you're getting back into bees. So this is like what I think your second year, or going on your third year.
This is the 4th package I purchased.
4th package you purchased. Okay, so. Yeah. You're dealing with this. You've had some moments where you felt a little frustrated in the past. You're trying to start over, get that first start again. You see packages. Next morning, you come out, you see this. What's the first thing on Mike's mind?
I called you guys who were going to come over and help me out and say, hey, the bees are dead. I just didn't know what happened. I had no idea how, because the first 2 times I bought a package.
Yeah.
And one was about 12 years ago, and then I tried it again more recently, and then I decided, well, let me take that class Tony offers. and then we had pretty good success last year. You helped me out with it, with the class, and then you came out and helped out. And in this one, I figured, okay, we're all ready to go, and got the packages, and I just didn't think, I didn't know why they would have all fallen like that, but there was very, very little activity in both of the packages.
Well, I know. When we got here, you were, understandably, you were like, what the heck's going on? They look like they're all dead, and you were concerned. But Antnee, he's he was like, you could tell he's emotionally involved in it. The moment he heard bees look like they're dead, he was like, oh no! You'd have thought
Man,
they
don't
were.
be telling that. I got an image to protect.
You gotta. That's okay because I was feeling the same way. I'm sitting in my own head. I'm like, oh man, that just. I think anybody that's had bees out there, and you see a situation or you hear about that, your heart sinks just a little bit, and you're just like, oh no. Even if they're not your own bees, it sucks. So we get out here, and me and Antnee pulled up and got the packages, and the one just looked bad. They were all covered in sticky and like literally glazed. They were like little glazed bees instead of glazed donuts. They were little glazed bees. But they were still movement. There was still some activity going on. So we thought we might be able to to keep them alive, to rescue them. We spread them out, split them up so they weren't just in big gobs. We sprinkled some just water on them and tried to dilute that sugar. And hopefully by spreading them out, they can help each other out and clean that up. We tried to get the one package that was completely fallen and get them going. And we did the same thing to the other package that was partially. We dumped them in, we spritzed them with some water, and I love the Cubs. Cubs are my boys, but I can't talk right now. We tried to rescue that second one, and they were a little better off, but they still had that same glazed look. Again, it was like the can of syrup just dumped down and just coated them. But after we got them in, the first one, we tried, I don't know how long we were out there with them, spraying them, trying to separate them, and nothing, we just couldn't get them back up.
Well, the queen you looked at too.
Yeah, and she was struggling. She just didn't make it. And she was still in the queen cage. So, I mean, just the fact of, it just was not a good situation all in all. It's not like she was wet, but just something happened in that with the queen and with the wetness in the bees, the sugar syrup. You, Antnee, this is your second year going in?
Yeah.
And you're looking at that. What are you thinking about when you see all these bees and you're trying to, what's going in your head as you're watching this, trying to get these and get these bees kicking back up?
Well, I try to be optimistic. So as I was seeing them, I was seeing the activity as some of them seemed to liven up, get moving more. But once we saw the queen and her lack of inactivity, I was like, yeah, that's kind of it was going to be tough for the queen.
True. Yeah. And unfortunately, that one didn't make it. But the other one that was halfway, queen come out. We got her out of there.
Oh, yeah.
And she was looking really good, real strong.
Yep.
We got about half, and like I said, all the ones in the bees, they dumped down in the bottom. We kind of, shook them out so that they distributed themselves a bit. They weren't just big pile, but they were a little bit spread out towards the bottom of the hive. We got them a little split up. We had them spritzed with water to kind of dilute that. And it was still, again, you're talking about half a package. So it was a pretty good amount of bees that were on the floor of that. And then you got the ones that are still looking like they're doing okay. And they started climbing up right away, all the healthy looking ones. And even they had a little glazed look over them. But we pulled back. We seen how they were doing, kind of watching, from a few feet away. We started inspecting the cages. And we realized that it wasn't an internal leak because the cans were fine. There was no leak from the cans, but the cages were totally wet and sticky from the outside.
Yeah, you could see, looked like little glazed donuts or little sugar bubbles attached to
in there.
Yep.
And what happens sometimes is you'll get, during transport, depending on who's transporting and how, sometimes there will be a collapse of a sugar can. But it might be if they're stacked up like in multiple levels, which is what I kind of suspect in this case. They were underneath a package or two that had the can just dump, and it ran all the way down off of those bees and down over the cages of yours, causing essentially the same thing, even though it wasn't their cans.
Well, and you don't know which transport it was.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been coming to the original location, to that person, from that location to bringing it down to your local area. it could have happened in a number of places. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint.
Because that sugar was pretty hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked
Yeah.
like it had been there for a little while. So for all we know, it could have happened
Yeah.
10 days ago when they loaded it up at the farm.
Well, I don't know about that long. They wouldn't have been alive at that point, I
No.
don't think. But it was probably a couple of days, but that could have been the last day of the journey in. It could have been the trip down, you know. So, I mean, at least a couple of days, because they were close to the end, but there was still that little bit of activity that kind of made us want to have hope. And that was really, I think, that little bit of hope. You look at them and you see that, like you said, Andy.
Yeah.
You see that little bit of activity, like they're trying to make it, and it's like, oh no, come on, you're rooting for them, and it didn't pull out, didn't manage to work out that way. So and you managed. Lucky for you though, you were able to talk to the supplier that you got them from, and he gave you, I believe, a refund on at least the one dead package. Right. And we came out today, about a week later, to see how that second one was doing. We opened the hive up today to do a little quick inspection. We didn't want to do too much in there, but because of the nature, the condition of putting them in, we want to make sure they're still there, they're still doing all right. We opened up, man, and what's kind of interesting is it gave that false lull, because as we're going in, it's not necessarily cool, but it's an overcast day, and the bees weren't being very active. They were all tucked into the hive, and they weren't at the entrance.
And this is May 1st, and they're predicting, and we don't know what the weather's going to be like.
Right.
This is going to be hailstorms the size of basketballs. So, I mean, the bees know this stuff is coming.
Right. So, but on our end, it's kind of like, oh no, what else might be going on here? Right. You just don't know, because you had that beginning, how that started off. Luckily, we managed to open it up. It looked good. They really looked good. A lot of good activity. They were clustered right in the center of them two frames. Obviously, not a full 3-pound package. You did scrape out, probably close to a pound of bees. It looked like, when you scraped out the bottom, looked like there was a few more down there. But so you probably got close to somewhere between, 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of bees left. Mm-hmm. Which is not an impossible thing to start up. And you got good sugar syrup feeder on there, so it's not like they have to work too hard to get food. You got the good queen in there. We're seeing a lot of good activity.
Well, we weren't really sure when you said the next day after we put them in there, we wanted to try and help them out a little bit. So
yeah.
I took a coat hanger and straightened it out and just kind of scraped underneath.
Right.
And used the box so I could kind of measure how much it was. And you thought there would have been a lot more.
I really did. I thought you would see a lot more dead bees coming out of there. So I was pleasantly surprised. I really thought it was like, wow. I expected, at least half of that colony to come out of there. So when you pulled just that little amount that showed on that lid, I was like, wow, that's a good turnout,
Well, and then when you moved the frames around today, I could see that they did actually get them out of there. They weren't
yeah.
on the bottom.
Yeah, So I mean, they really picked up from where we tried to rescue them. Even though they had been sugar coated bees. Mm-hmm. That one, our resuscitation effort. Like I said, all we did was that kind of distribute them, spread them out so they weren't piled, way deep pile, but spread them out a little bit across the bottom board, and then spritzed them with water to kind of dissolve that sugar. And they basically, licked and ate the sugar off of the group, and helped each other out that way by consuming all of that. From the looks of it today, it looked like it worked. So.
Well, and you placed the queen in there was it a week ago?
It was, yeah.
So at least we know the queen was placed in there, and then you took a look at.
We had good signs of her today, so I'm optimistic that we're going to leave it alone now for another 2 weeks, because they were drawing comb. It looked like they were storing syrup. They were clustered really tightly around the one frame in the middle. So I didn't see the queen, but a lot of good, really calm on the comb, on the frame there. So I'm fairly confident by their behavior that she was on that frame. So we'll come back in a couple of weeks and we'll see what you see down there, checking it out in about 2 weeks from now, and hopefully we can say we got a full rescue, and we brought them from a predicament and made it turn out okay. But there's always those kind of things that can happen. You can have sugar syrup leaks from cans. And it may not, like I said, it may not even be a direct, like the sugar can in your package. It could have been from a nearby package, one that was on top or next door or something like that, and just sloshed. With nukes, you can have things like that in terms of comb collapse. I've seen nukes ship where they'll include a frame of honey, but it might be placed in there just certain ways, just so heavy, and if a truck's carrying it and it hits certain, a good bump somewhere, it can actually break that comb, cause of course, that comb falls down and it crushes bees, and then any honey that's leaking out from there drowns more of them. So, and I've seen whole nukes get killed just by transport issues also. So, I mean, there are issues that can be really just a downside to getting your bees installed if you're getting them through a package or a nuke, even a full-blown hive, because that's just kind of thing. The odds, not really all that high. I think for the most part, you're not going to see it a lot, but I think it bears mentioning. I think people out there now hopefully can look for these kind of things. I guess the biggest message I can say, I think all of us relearned or learned this time, is at the pickup point, when you're getting your package, don't put it in your car and leave your pickup location. Look at the bees first, and if they don't look good, if they look half dead, if they look whatever, stop and turn right back around to the guy that's handing the packages out and say, hold on, wait a minute, this don't look good. I think if just a little quick looks and investigating, checking things out before we even leave the pickup point where we're getting our nukes.
Well, and I took a picture of the two packages just because I put them in my car and I wanted to show my wife and daughters.
Right.
Not because I was looking to have, but the next day when we
Right.
said, hey, by the way, let's take a look at these pictures, you could see looking at the pictures that the glaze had been on there.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that was good, I think, for you, in making your case to the supplier and say, look at this. This was when I picked them up,
Question. Typically, or when I got my package, they all seem to be in that cluster.
Right.
So is that typically what all the packages should do? Or I know bees are crazy and everything. So
rule number one,
if you, because you know how bees look in a package when they're clustered. So if you don't see that, something is that
if you don't see that cluster from the top down, where they're clustered at the top and they kind of make like an upside down pyramid almost look in the package. That's what it should look like for the most part. Now, that isn't to say that it isn't possible that the trailer carrying them all didn't hit a big bump and they all got shook to the bottom. But as long as you can see if they're on the bottom, but you see them scrambling and climbing back up the sides, and you see the activity where they're trying to reform that little cluster, that's still okay. Because, some places, these drop-off and pickup locations sometimes happen in little side rural places, lots of bumps, potholes, they take place in some off-road sites. So while it's not, 100% that, it's got to look like that, 95%, it should look like that little upside-down pyramid cluster in a package. And if not, if they are on the bottom, you should see a lot of activity where they're trying to climb back up and reform. If they're all on the bottom and they're not climbing back up, you don't see the activity trying to reform, you want to stop and say, hold on, this needs another look. I'm not going to take bees that are basically dead or dying here. So it's just something to look out for in the future, Same thing with your nukes. If you can, try to get an inspection. It's hard to do inspections on nukes because once you open a nuke lid, half of your bees start flying away when you're going at the pickup point. They are reluctant to open the lids at pickup points because, A, you're releasing a lot of bees in the air that aren't going to be going back home with the nuke they should, and you're losing a lot of foragers for that nuke that they need to start off fresh or to build from there. So you want to look, but at the other, they may not let you, or it might have to be a really quick look just to see. You pop the lid real quick, see good activity, at the tops. They're coming to investigate. What's our lid doing open, and then you pop that lid back down. But if you see something there that's just nothing, looks barren or empty, as soon as you pop the lid, that's a quick sign. You can say, we need to check this out a little further with whoever's providing them or delivering them, so that way you're not taking home, an already half dead or dead nuke.
Hey, can you sound check them?
You can. You tap on the side there.
Yeah.
It's easier to hear, like a bigger full-size 8 or 10 frame hive. Sometimes if they're clustered right in the middle, you go to listen and you can't hear them too well because they're in the middle and they got all that air and it's, deadening space. You kind of have to tap on the side and put your ear right on the box to hear them. You'll tap and all of a sudden you hear that increase in sound.
I have a stethoscope.
You can use a stethoscope. I know some people that use microphones on their smartphones and stuff. They'll put it right by the entrance and they'll just turn that on so the microphone will amplify the sound at the entrance. So, there's a lot of different ways you could listen. See, you thought you were going to catch me out on that. Don't work, people. It don't work. Anyway.
He wouldn't admit it anyways.
Yeah. Not to the likes of you. Anyway. But yeah, so, you want to check them, and the sound check is good because, if it's a real weak sound and you've got a tool like a stethoscope or you're trying to get a sound check with, a microphone or something, or just knocking on the side and listening with your ear and you don't hear anything or very little, that's, again, a good, it's not a good excuse to just automatically say no, but it leads you to investigate more. It's saying, I need to check this before I leave because I'm not hearing anything, I'm not seeing anything, I'm not taking dead bees home. You paid for them. You don't want to take, some dead bees home. You didn't pay for dead bees. You paid for live bees.
My bees were live.
They were.
They really were. They're probably still alive. They just found a
They
home.
left.
They weren't my bees.
They abandoned me.
I had a whole different kind of heartbreak.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Oh, man.
You put the box in there and...
Yep, put the box in.
And they stayed for a little while.
Yeah, they were in there for 2 days. I went to check them. The box was about half empty. And they had all seemed to be clustering on right where I had put the queen.
Yeah.
I didn't direct release her. I let just took the cork off and put the cage in there. But yeah, half the bees had left the box and were going to the frames. And I was like, cool, I'm good. Put the cover back on and came back a few days later to remove the box, the package. I saw no activity. It felt bad.
I believe that.
And I opened it up and I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And absolutely none of them were there. It was ridiculous.
So you had a bad call. Mike had a half and half bad call, close call going on, just getting started this year. You had bees that made it through the winter.
Oh, that too.
They made it through the winter.
They made it through.
This goofy early spring, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold, cold, warm, and it just couldn't make up its mind.
Right.
Unfortunately, you're not the only one. People who thought they made it, celebrating, they're partying. Got my bees through winter, only to find out they didn't make it through this goofy spring.
I was thinking beekeeping was easy. I was like, man, what are they talking about? I made it through the winter, and whatever.
See, I lost mine in the winter in January.
Yeah.
And there was just nothing to it. They were all...
Well, in January, it was another one of those points where, environmentally, just, not even thinking about, diseases or pests or anything like that, just environmentally alone. Like I said, the weather around here, you get weird days where, you had mostly cool, cold wintry days, and then Nebraska had to pop up with, hey, here's a 55, 60-degree day out of nowhere. Right. Bees break cluster, and then like an hour and a half later, it's back down to 20. And the bees can't form cluster again, or along those lines. So it really makes it hard when you have just the weather. And that's just on top of other, the environmental on top of other issues that we know we're facing with bees. There's pests that overwinter. You've got possibly, your varroa mites that will overwinter. Sometimes you have small hive beetle that have been known to overwinter, and they just create and build stress in a colony over that period of time. And then, of course, if the queen does start laying, in a good winter pattern starting in about January, February, usually about February, she starts kicking up again, depending on the kind of bees you got. Well, then, if you've got varroa mites in there, that population is increasing at the same time, and it's just building the stress levels there. So, but you can't really do a full inspection either because it's January, February,
I blame climate change. Oh, I kill me.
Somebody should. Anyway.
Well, understanding phenology.
We had that discussion earlier. We had phenology come up. And taxonomy. All kinds of onomies. Enologies. Anyway, so this has been a fun little thing, talking about bees dying out and almost dying out. But we've got a success story, it looks like, on the way. And if nothing else, out of talking about bees and colonies and packages dying, at least we can come out with one success. All of our hopes right now, Mike, are riding on your colony down here.
Oh, right on. When we went back there to check on it, there was good guarding on Sunday when it was sunny.
Yeah.
And I said, hey guys, don't want to get your expectations up, but there was no guards out there. And we went down, it was one or two. When we opened it up, it was just a different world.
Oh, yeah. And that's just like you said, it was overcast. And it's not necessarily cool even. It's like 68 degrees, almost 70 degrees out there. It's just overcast, and the breeze is a little bit out there. But, I mean, they were all inside looking good. So we're pinning our hopes on your hive there.
And they're not drinking much of the sugar water that they put out.
No, but they're drawing wax. So at the same time, while they're not taking too much sugar syrup, but they are drawing wax out, that means that it shows us that they are collecting nectar. And I see you getting a good bumper crop of dandelions out here. So they've got a good natural source, and bees typically, when they've got a good natural source, they're going to pick that over artificial, the sugar syrup. So it's a pretty common behavior.
And my wife threw some wildflowers out too. So
awesome. Well, gotta love when those pop up. Mm-hmm. But I'm a fan of dandelion. You realize, people don't realize what you can get out of it. You can get dandelion. You make salad. You can make wine, dandelion wine. You can make jam out of dandelions. I know a lady just down south of Bellevue. She makes dandelion jam. Awesome stuff. Yes, Kelly, I'm talking about you. I know you're listening, and I want some. You didn't even ask me. See how you are. But anyways, we are running down. This half hour has gone fast, guys. It gave us plenty to talk about, though, going down there and checking it all out, knowing where they came from, knowing how they started. So telling the whole story of how everybody got there,
Hopefully in 2 weeks we got a better follow-up.
Yep, 2 weeks we'll have a quick follow-up, and you'll let us know how they're doing. And, of course, always if you want me to stop by, we can definitely do that. Check things out with you. I think for the most part, though, if you want to have everybody, I got a little stunned. I was playing with my phone. Okay, fine. I'm recording something special behind the scenes for the Patreon patrons. So if you're a Patreon guy, you're going to see a little bit of this video. See, look at, there we are. Hi, say hi. Wave at us. You guys don't get to see it if you're not a Patreon patron, though. So you need to become one and support the Be Smart Beekeeping Project, because this is what we do. They can see us chatting over here while we're recording a podcast episode and talking about bees. So, all right, guys.
So that's a benefit, them being able to
it's
actually
a benefit,
see
yes,
us.
They can see us, because if for nothing else, they can freeze the frame, print the picture out, and it's great for rodent control. It's great. Yeah.
Toilet paper.
All kinds of stuff, man. There's great uses for this. Okay. Anyway, fine.
My.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. We got an interesting little podcast episode here, and I want to thank Mike for hosting us and letting us come out and play with the bees and see that they're doing all right. And Antnee G, it's always glad to have you back in here again.
Yep.
And hopefully we get to have you along a few more times as we go forward. We got the Beehooligan Days down at Scatterjoy Acres Teaching Apiary coming, so maybe you'll get some of them.
Oh, absolutely.
And well, Mike, you might find your way down there someday too. Oh, hey! Exciting news! I am now the bee guy at Lauritsen Gardens in Omaha. It's official. Got made official today. I'll be teaching some native bee classes for the Bee Spotters program that I'm putting together. So it's teaching people how to identify and make nice little habitats in their yards and places for native bees, bumblebees and mason bees and leaf cutters and carder bees and you name it. We're going to do all that. So we got classes coming down there, and who knows, I might even con them into letting us put some rescued bee colonies, honeybee hives down there too. So if we're lucky, we'll have Beehooligans hanging out of Lauritsen Gardens.
Nice place.
We want to make as much as we can of a positive impact. And what better place for beehives than a place that is nothing but gardens?
Yeah.
I think it's the best place in the world. All right, guys. Well, thanks again, Mike. Thanks, Antnee G. This is Tony Sandoval, Big Bear, with the Bee Smart Beekeeping Project podcast featuring the Beehooligans. Is that a title or what? I've got to work on it. All right, guys. Y'all have a good one. Later.